Coming up, the project the Prime Minister is calling a major effort toward diversification.
Also ahead, what else is known about that Grand Bahama plane crash that killed 4?
And up and away, a new route and hopefully new revenue for the national flag carrier. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Ground was broken today for the Bahamas Agriculture and Marine Science Institute in North Andros, and 8 contracts worth $1.3 million signed. Good evening, I'm Candino Knowles.
And Kish Latterly, thanks for joining us. Well, Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie was among those attending the launch of the Institute, scheduled for a September 2014 opening. Today, Prime Minister Christie called the partnership between the College of the Bahamas, Ministry of Agriculture, and Bahamas Agricultural and Industrial Corporation the beginning of a major effort to institutionalize diversification.
International scientists.
Generation of experts in aquaponics, marine biology, marine and coral reef ecology. In addition, the Institute will create a commercial consultancy to develop programs I've indicated that will impact the entire country. Ladies and gentlemen, there's poetry and wonder in making lands bloom. But there's also science and technology. And we are committed to making sure a new generation of Bahamians have the skills they need to build their own success, while at the same time creating thriving new industries which can make all Bahamians safer, healthier, and more prosperous.
Now, the contracts are for the repair of 8 homes to house staff of the Institute. The Institute is expected to engage students and facilitate various areas of research. A partnership with the University of Miami will assist with the establishment of a laboratory in Andros, which will introduce some important national benefits.
That laboratory will be testing foodstuff for all over the Bahamas for commercial purposes and being paid to do so. Think also of the fact that we are integrating the laboratory into the environmental impact assessments and management plans, and therefore that is income. There is no reason, therefore, why the government will not be able to treat this as a matter of being able to find the money to put in place immediately to make it happen, because there will be a return on the investment, and so much so to be paid for.
More details emerging today about the Grand Bahama plane crash and difficult recovery effort. Our Megan Shepard heard details of what it took to recover bodies of the 4 Americans and what's known so far about the pilot who routinely flew around Grand Bahama.
The single-engine Cirrus SR-22 is registered in Indiana to first-class flyers. According to reports, the pilot radioed that he was having some engine problems and crashed minutes after takeoff from the Grand Bahama International Airport. Basra was notified of the crash shortly after 11 Sunday morning. Justin Snisky says they were able to assemble a rescue team, including police officers, and headed to the site.
We also deployed a small personal watercraft from the Queens Cove area. As I said, it was about 4 miles out of Queens Cove, which would have been our fastest response. We decided, because of the location, this would have been a perfect staging ground here. EMS was notified. Once our personnel was on scene, it was evident that there were no survivors at that time. Then it went from a rescue effort into a recovery effort. Again, on scene we had approximately 3 boats along with the personal watercraft, and the boats consisted of Basra personnel, Marine personnel, and Royal Bahamas Police Force.
Sinisky says 3 vessels were deployed at the scene of the crash and 1 personal watercraft that was instrumental in communication between officials on land and those at the scene. Now, reports say the 4 persons on board, all Americans, were going on an aerial sightseeing tour of the island. The plane's wreckage and the bodies of the 4 Americans were found in waters 4.5 miles west of the airport.
We set the staging area where we were going to bring them in. We did get out there on scene. We choreographed everything with everybody, let them know the best way to get on scene and how we were going to best correspond with them. The scene itself, don't want to get into too much information on it as it is in early stages of investigation, but it's unfortunate that the plane was broken up at the time.
According to the Indianapolis Star, the pilot held a valid private pilot license for a single-engine aircraft, and Federal Aviation Administration records show that the aircraft was inspected and declared airworthy back in November of 2004. The Star states the first-class flyers obtained a commercial license back in 2007, and that license is set to expire in January of 2016. Meantime, investigators from the Civil Aviation Department's Air Accident Investigation and Prevention Unit are expected to conduct an on-site field investigation into Sunday's fatal crash.
Well, thanks a lot, Megan. That was our Megan Shepard reporting from our Northern Service.
State Minister for Finance Michael Halkitis revealed today that his ministry was able to cut some $162 million in its cost-saving initiative. During the last budget period, the government asked its agencies to cut budgets by 10% following a call by international ratings agencies for the government to reduce spending and lower the deficit. The government had also asked the organizations to present a cost-saving proposal.
It went very well, didn't come in at exactly 10%, just under 10%, but I think we did well, and we continue to look within governments to ways to trim the fat, so to speak, make savings, because we understand it's not our policy, it's not our program to just say to the Bahamian people, pay more when we don't. We are not looking for ways where we can maximize what they're paying already, and I want to assure the Bahamian people that we're doing that as well. Mind you, when we tell people to cut their budgets, they're not happy about that either, but it is something that needs to be done. If you look at some of the recent reports coming out of the central bank, we see a downward direction in the deficit. We hope that will continue. This is a multi-year process.
Now, the minister also pointed out that value-added tax implementation isn't the only measure the government is looking at to get the country's financial position in order.
We are looking at an adjustment over the next 4 years or so of $500 million, meaning we have to have a combination of expenditure controls, new revenues that will total that. And he said that within the context of to inform the public that, and maybe this has gotten lost in the discussion, this whole reform process is not simply the government saying we're going to put this new tax on. We have been going through a number of cost-cutting measures within the government, and so our program consists of expenditure control, better administration of the revenue, doing a better job of collecting the revenue that's out there.
Well, speaking of cost-cutting measures, stabilizing finances up at BEC also remains a top priority for the government as it continues its cost-cutting track. Well, the unions representing line and managerial staff at the state-run corporation have banded together and say they are more than willing to forego certain benefits, but will not compromise on others.
We will not accept any reduction in the benefits of our medical coverage because of the risk involved.
A stern promise by Clinton Minnis, who represents middle managers at Bahamas Electricity Corporation, after Chairman Leslie Miller announced that as part of cost-cutting measures, employees would be asked to contribute to the $5 million a year medical plan come January or expect a reduction in coverage.
We're not going to accept that we are to contribute and we put our lives at risk out there to service this country.
And union reps further claim that based on national statistics, BEC workers, especially those in the technical field, die sooner than other workers.
A very good friend of mine was electrocuted at East Street South a few years ago. We had more than one industrial accident where persons were electrocuted. I mentioned earlier Mr. Brian Strawn, Clifford Strawn from Exuma, who was shocked with 7,200 volts. And so we have a very, very dangerous job.
Additionally, workers have been asked to begin contributing to the pension fund as of 2014. BEC alone has subsidized the $11 million a year pension plan, which Mr. Miller says BEC simply cannot afford to do anymore. But Stefano Green, who represents BEC line staff, says the unions were actually never opposed to contributing.
Both unions in the past had made proposals to the corporation for a contributory pension plan. The problem at the time was that one of the stipulations would have been that the unions would be either one of the trustees on the pension board or have a seat on the pension board. And at the time, the corporation refused to do that.
Folks don't want us around the table because we will have the information to help make decisions and to also monitor and protect the interests of employees and also members of our union.
Meantime, Mr. Miller tells ZNS News that he's pleased with the financial progress he's made over the last year by cutting overtime in New Providence by $4 million. There's also been the installation of mechanisms to prevent blackouts as BEC is trying to secure new engines. The next move, Mr. Miller says, is to get overtime in the Family Islands under control.
We have a lot of problems that we need to deal with, a lot of problems. But we have a goal, and that goal is to bring down the cost of electricity.
Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell has landed in Sri Lanka for the start of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. He'll be joined later this week by the Prime Minister and other delegates.
It's a gathering of all the leaders of the various countries from across the globe. And for the Bahamas, what's important is the fact that we never get to interact with some of these countries. We've got elections coming up for the International Maritime Organization at the end of November. And some of the countries in the South Pacific who we have no relationships with will have an opportunity to talk to them because we need their vote in order to succeed at these elections coming up. So it's things like that happen. And, of course, it's a chance for the Prime Minister to make an exchange with his colleagues about events across the world. And, of course, the Bahamas is most interested in the development of the issues in and around the financial services sector and how to promote trade.
In our first look at weather, the tropics remain quiet this evening, but a little bit more turbulent conditions outside of our studios. We have mostly cloudy skies, temperature 77 degrees, relative humidity quite rich at 89%. Your winds out of the north-northeast at 8 knots. Your barometric pressure 1,017.0 millibars. That translates to 30.03 inches, and it is steady. But stay tuned. Temperatures around the Family Islands, travel and boating forecast is still to come.
Well, still ahead tonight, Bahamas Air hopes a new route brings new revenue.
And later on, we take a look at careers for South Andros students. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news is brought to you by Lux Men's Warehouse.